Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing? It's your man Rondell Jordan, aka the Black Swan. I'm here with an episode of the Worldview, and today we're going to be talking about the children of the diaspora. Okay, the descendants of the diaspora, and how our stories are related to the biblical stories. And a lot of it, you got to understand that everything African was demonized. Okay, so there's so much involved, but I want to make a quick synopsis of how I kind of go through these stories and how I explain my perspective through facts and that are relative to reality rather than the allegorical sense. Okay, so if you look at Africa, you see that it's surrounded by water. All right, the entire continent is surrounded by water except for a small little land bridge right here. This small little land bridge is the only natural land bridge out of that you can walk out of the continent of Africa. This is the reason why we have the story of the Great Migration. These two, what we now call the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea, these were once called the Great Sea because again it surrounded the entire. So you had to have specific knowledge and able to be able to navigate throughout the different terrains of Africa, throughout the different languages and cultures, and end up here at the epicenter, where there is 100 mile, about 100 mile land bridge. Again, that symbolizes in the story of Moses, where this is the Exodus out of Egypt or out of the African mainland, and the beginning of the migration outside of that into the land of Canaan. So everything about in the Bible is to basically justify one group of people who are migrating out of the Caucasus Mountains, what we now call Caucasians, right? And at that time, they were known as really like the Goths or the Khazarians, all right? So it's a secret empire, as we can see, located right here between the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea. And this empire is an empire that converted to the king, and the king about 300 century, we would call that AD, Anno Domini. Okay, so here to the right you will see Christianity, and here to the left you will see Islam. And these are how basically you'll see the natural progression of how this concept, these Abrahamic religions, spread throughout the earth. All right. Now, the Abrahamic religion is basically one group of people here that has a seed that is migrating down through what we call here, if you see here, right here, this is Tehran. This is Iran, the capital of Iran, right here near the Caspian Sea. And then they continue to migrate downward. And here, Turkey, the same here. All right. Now, these nations here are Muslim. Over here, you'll see Christianity. And here, this is where the what we call the subjects of the war with Hitler. These are the Jewish, where those Jewish subjects come from. So these Jewish subjects were then sent and brought down here under the concept of the Bible, that this is the homeland of the Israeli people. So this here is, if you notice, a prime location of the old ancient world. And this is the reason why this is such a coveted place. The Red Sea deads in this region. The Nile flows up into this region. The Mediterranean Sea deads into this. The land bridge the only land bridge out of Africa goes into this region, goes into Saudi Arabia, goes into Asia. And then you have the access into Europe. So, of course, the Greeks are the first that are, well, actually, the Mesopotamians, the Mesopotamians, under the name of the Hebrew, are the first to kind of migrated in here, and then the Greeks came, and then the Romans came, and then the British came, and the Spanish later in history pretty much conquered the West. All right. So anyway, this is just giving a little bit perspective of where the Tower of Babel would have been. These tower builders right here, and outside of the towers would have been cities. So you don't have to go far to look at certain um, details that are reality that can be proven, facts that these towers were surrounded by cities. All right, the city of Amun, the first, and as you know, we're talking about the same reason, same area. Now, at this time, it was called, we call it Palestine, or it can be called Palestine. But there was a period of time where this area here was called Canaan. This area is referred to Mizraim. This area formed, as you can see, Nubia, but before then, even then, it's Cush. Cush. If you see this, we call it Sudan. In the Bible, it's Dudan. Over back in here would be Punt. All right, so I'm just breezing through these things so that we can kind of make this story short. So I'm gonna go ahead and read this story so we can get it out the way. It's called the Tower of Babel. It's being told as a story of a people who were rebellious. All right, so it's identified with Nimrod. All right, Nimrod, who is one of the very first or only people in the Bible who's really a credit to being black, even though that pretty much every character, except for possibly Abraham, being of an African descent. But here, I'm going to prove real quick that these characters are representatives of descendants of certain nations. All right, so Ham is the biblical son of Noah, traditional ancestor of the Hamites. Okay, so he begot what? Cush. So if we look up Cush, Cush is the eldest son of Ham, the grandson of Noah, the southern part of ancient Nubia, first mentioned in the Egyptian records of the Middle Kingdom in the Bible. It is the country of the descendants of Cush. See, we're talking about the country of the descendants of Cush. And so Cush is the what? Ancient Nubia, the southern part. The northern part would be Mizraim. Mizraim is the Hebrew and Aramaic name for the land of Egypt, with the dal suffix perhaps referring to two Egypts, Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. All right, so we already know that the non-Babylonian texts used the term Mizraim for Egypt. The name was for the instance inscribed in the famous Ishtar Gate of Babylon. All right, so we want to go to Put. Put, that, because it's an actual word, it's hard to look that up. But Put is in the back, basically, is where Libya is at and beyond. And Canaan is, of course, what we just recognized as the biblical name for the area of ancient Palestine, west of the Jordan River. So we are identifying that the Bible has its own terminology for geographical positions on the planet. All right, and so we can kind of piece together some of these details. But Israelites who conquered and occupied during the later part of the second millennium BC. Okay, second millennium. This is 2,000 years before Christ. Okay, so based off of that, this is basically where the history that we're talking about. Okay. And so we're talking about the families, nations, according to their languages, right? But it says the coastland peoples of the Gentiles were separated into everyone into their language according to their families. All right, and this is after the flood, okay? Now we're going to see that Cush, right, begot Nimrod, right? And the sons of Cush was Sheba, right, Queen Sheba, and this is the reason why the Ethiopians, right, Haile Selassie, right. Let's see if I still have that here. No, but Let's see here. Um, well, I don't have that. I don't have it right here, but I don't want to take too much time. But we see Mesopotamia. We see the flow of our. This is represented in Abraham. We'll go through that later on. But let's get to the story, okay? So we're basically prefacing the story to let you know that we're talking about the families of the Canaanites who were dispersed, okay? And so I want to make sure that we identify that all the sons of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan, and all of these are African nations. So that's what we, Sudan, Sheba, but we are establishing that, okay? We're talking about African people in which the families of the Canaanites are dispersed. We're talking about the area where we're talking about is the Gaza. So everything I'm talking about here is backed up. Okay. So now the whole earth had one language and one speaking. It came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Then they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They had brick or stone for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. Nothing wrong with that. And they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. So the reason why they're building this tower is because they were afraid that they would be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth, which is by definition a diaspora. All right. So when we look at the ancient Nubia, uh, we'll do in Egypt, we will we want to look at the pyramids. All right, so when we look at the pyramids, and we'll notice that they're surrounded by cities, and this is Nubia. This is talking about the Sudan, where there's tons of pyramids. All right, but the point that I'm making is that we know that that these pyramids were surrounded by cities, and not only that, if you look at this image here of the Sphinx, you notice not only the nose is blown off to cover up the fact that it's an African, but the serpent, notice how the serpent is also blown off and demonized as the African people, right? But you would have to blow the whole head off to get the fact that the serpent, the cobra, was a staple part of the culture and its wisdom. And as you can see, the pyramid builders originate in the Sudan, which we now call the land of Cush. All right. So this is the reason why the Bible starts in the land in these regions. If you go to Genesis 2, you notice that everything, and we'll go through this later, but it starts around the land of Cush. All right. And we see this is the ancient Nubian mentioned in the Bible, the kingdom, the country of the descendants of Cush. All right. So we are talking about descendants of the African people. We're talking about people who traditionally, factually built pyramids. They built the pyramids so that they can place the history on the walls, the ceilings, the floor, so that when there was a diaspora, that the children of the diaspora will be able to come back and piece together their history. Because if it wasn't because of these monuments, which are aligned with the stars of the Orion constellation, we would not have any evidence of our past. Okay, we would simply be subject to whatever we were told. But as you can see, surrounding the pyramids are cities. All right. So, and they had temples, but these are positioned in specific alignment with the heavens. So, all right. So when we say that We're talking about people who are tower builders. So let's get back to the second part of the story. Once we just established that a tower is also known uh, as a pyramid, and these pyramids were being built all over the world. Okay, so not only were they being built in Egypt, but ancient pyramids. Let's just get rid of ancient. They were being built in China, in Asia. They were being built in Belize in Central America, Mexico. They were being built in South America and North America. So there was pyramids being built all over the world. There's some in all over the world, around the world. All right, but I don't want to make this too long. All right, so it says, but the Lord came down to see the city and the towers which the sons of men had built. Notice it says the sons of men. Notice it says the Lord meaning master. All right. So Lord means master, ruler, leader, chief, monarch, sovereign, king, emperor, prince, governor, commander. It does not mean God, okay? Came down to see the city and the towers which the sons of men had built. Sons of men means the descendants of the native people. And the Lord said, indeed, the people are one, united, and they all have one language, and this is what they begin to do. Now, nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. Come, let us go down. Look at this legion. This is come, let us. So this Lord has allegiance. He has a group of people with this capital U, which is creating, meaning that it is uppercase, meaning superiors. Go down in there, confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So they're causing the confusion, the discord, right? The distraction. So the Lord scattered them from abroad, from there over the face of all the earth. Again, that's the definition of a diaspora. And they ceased building the city, therefore its name is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. And that's it. We go into the genealogy of Shem. All right. And then we'll start getting into the land of Canaan. And guess who shows up? Abram. He does not have Ham's heritage and blessing yet, his last name, but is being combined. So he is still Abram, and he is migrating. As you can see, Abram took his wife and Lot, his brother's son, their possessions. They gathered the people, that's their servants. They got slaves, whom they acquired, such as Hagar, the Egyptian slaves of Sarah, who Abram ended up having a first son with, right? Who ended up going back down south into Egypt and finding a wife, finding a wife and becoming Egyptian again, which means that now you have what they would call an Abrahamic African people, and this is where you get people who kind of identify with the Black Israelites. So also this is the story of how you get the Arabs. Okay, so we know that Hagar was an Egyptian, and we know Egyptian is just Kemet, a Greek word of Kemet. Kemet were Black people of the region of Mizraim, and so all of this stuff you can just simply put together. They say they departed to go to the land of Canaan. All right, so that identifies, and none of this stuff is being really hidden, other than the fact that it's being told in a way where people are being misled in the translations. So we dig deep and we put all of this stuff together in a sense where people can understand the allegories, and rather than being taught that these things are actually real life things, these are real life tales that are telling us about reality and about the conquests going on around the earth right now as we look at it. Okay, so this conquest is coming from out of this region, spreading in Christianity in this way, Judaism down into this region, basically just being the head of the bird, and then the other wing of the bird is Islam. So it's a bird that's flying, one wing Christianity, the head is Judaism, and the other wing is Islam. And these are religions to replace the traditional culture, the way of being. So when you're baptized, that's symbolizing you wiping away the past. In today's terms, is our baggage from the past. But in the original sense, is wiping away your culture, wiping away your tradition, or purifying yourselves, as this all is established in Genesis 34. We won't go into detail in this episode, but I do go into detail of this in other episodes, and I will do an episode specifically on this. But if you notice at the end of the story, after the natives were plundered, all right, they took the sheep, oxen, donkey, all their wealth, their little ones, their wives, they took captive. And this was after they boldly slain and plundered the city. I mean, they waited on the third day. It's just showing you about the dynamic between the sons of Jacob versus the sons of men, or the native people of the planet. All right, but eventually, what happens is that Jacob, in this story, in this allegory, he says to his household, and to all who were in, to put away the foreign gods that are among you. Purify yourselves and change your garment. Let us arise and go to Bethel, and I make an altar there to God, right? So they gave Jacob the foreign gods which were in their hands, the earrings which were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the terebinth tree, which was in Shechem. And this is alluding to the tree of knowledge of thyself, right? And they journeyed, and the terror of God was upon the cities and all around them. They did not pursue the sons of Jacob. So nobody really pursues the sons of Jacob, Jacob being the personification of Israel in the land. So Jacob came to, which is in the land, Bethel, right? Which is in the land of Canaan. So this is the narrative all throughout the Bible. The Old Testament is about the land of Canaan, right? And eventually Joseph bankrupt Egypt and consolidate the people's power, land, and resources to the Pharaoh. And then Egypt is plundered entirely in Exodus. And it's being demonized. The Pharaoh's being demonized, right? Using the point of view of the Abrahamic people. So we are the African people. We are circumcised, as established in this story, in the Dinah incident, where circumcision is the subject here. The people were tricked. The native people were tricked into getting circumcised, thinking that they would become one people, and then eventually they were beheaded and tricked while they were in the pain. See, on the third day when they were in pain, the sons of Jacob, Simeon, Levi, Dinah's brother, each took the sword, and Baliah came and killed all the males, right? So the males are always the target. In Egypt, during the Exodus story, right, the Pharaoh command all the firstborn males to be killed by the Hebrew midwives. That's something that is not really often told, but is in the story. We go through that once we go through Exodus. And so as you can see, there we go into detail to really teach the African perspective of these Bible stories, because it's very important for us as a people. Before you can have even economic freedom, you have to have a spiritual freedom. You have to have a sense of self-determination. You have to have a sense of unity of mind, and you have to have a sense of community in order to really be able to capitalize on any type of wealth, which, number one, starts with human capital. Two, it needs land and its resources, and those people cultivating the land and those resources. So we are the children of the diaspora. We are the people without land. We are the people that were spread throughout the earth, face of the earth, and we are the people that are divided by language, whether it is that we are speaking French, Spanish, English, Portuguese, right? Depending on where you have been placed during the Middle Passage. Which on the bellies we went. And of course, that is the curse in Genesis. Cain, Cain's father, right? Who, when he would listen to his wife and But anyway, the point is, this is a book of curses on the black people. Okay, and it's a promise to the white people. And this promise is a hijack. It's been hijacked. If you go to Revelations, you will see it says, I know the blasphemy. Actually, let's start it here. I know the works, tribulation, and poverty, right? This says the first and the last, right? Who is dead and came to life. I know your works, tribulation, and poverty, but you are rich. See, the rich. Who's the rich? But their works, they create tribulation and poverty. I know your blasphemy of those who say they're Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan, right? All right. So, it says, also, of course, they always confirm it. Like I said, they confirm it. And you will see, regarding the book of life, it is written, again, I know your works. I see, I have set before you an open door, and no one can shut it. For you have little strength, have kept my word, and have not denied my name. These people keep his commandments. Indeed, I make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not, but lie. Indeed, I will make them come and worship before your feet, and know that I have loved you. All right. So, I'm just, I'm not really, trying to identify, cause any type of animosity or hostility to any people. I'm just breaking down, what's going on. What's going on between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn down here in Brazil. And this region of the world has been completely hijacked. The Ethiopian, Egypt, Libya. Libya currently has been turned from one of the most prosperous countries in the continent of Africa under the regime of Gaddafi, right, to the center of the modern slave trade, where they're selling brothers for like $400, man. So, I mean, what we thought was in the past is not in the past. It's still going on today. And so for us to understand what's going on, we must look at the reality of the situation that's going on earth, come up with a self-determination. Number one, you apply these principles to empower your own lives, to free your lives, to give your life more value, because the fruits of your labor is supposed to go towards benefiting your lineage, and not someone else. So you start looking at life a little bit differently once you see what's going on the planet. So leave your comments. All below is all our links, to our social media contact information and our groups on Facebook, uh, um, and we also have a Patreon page, so that we can build a following to support some of our efforts around the world. Currently, we are building in Belize. We have a foothold in Belize with Belisa. Lisa, we are supporting and initiating her internet cafe, where she is cooking original, authentic Belizean dishes. Delicious, I imagine. I'm headed down there later this month to go ahead and give that a try. And, we're sponsoring, we're supporting African American businesses locally and abroad in African American countries, right? Why not? So that we can then bring awareness to our brothers and sisters worldwide about our, our sisters and brothers, right? The children of the diaspora, all right? We also be headed down to Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, right, near the City of God, to celebrate Black History Month in Brazil with Zumi Dos Palmeiras, brother who's linked to Nzinga, who was a warrior, right, who broke away from slavery. And then he basically went in and started a free colony in the jungle, and continued to rescue, kind of like Harriet Tubman, But he built a little colony of Africa. Ended up was plundered, and we'll go through that and everything that is African, like the Tower of Babel, is often plundered after it has reached a certain level of success. Okay, and simply the same principles that is illustrated in these Bible stories, like Genesis 34, these are being used to justify the, you know, should she be treated like sister like a harlot? Now, this, if you know the story, Shisham offered his whole kingdom, offered every dowry. He was the most honorable of his father. We go through this. We go through this story tooth and nail as well, and this tells us a lot about what's going on in the world as well. So let's wrap it up. Let me know what your thoughts are. God bless you. Till next time. I'm your host, Rondell Jordan, on The Worldview. Peace.